You know, when you walk into a really carefully engineered home, there's this distinct sensory shift the second the front door clicks shut behind you.
Oh, absolutely. It's almost immediate.
Right. Like, it's difficult to pinpoint at first, but the environment just feels fundamentally altered. The air is perfectly still, the low-frequency rumble of street traffic totally vanishes, and the structure itself just feels planted.
Yeah, that sensory shift is basically your brain recalibrating. We're so used to living in environments with these constant micro vibrations and thermal drafts.
Oh, for sure. Traditional houses kind of breathe and creak.
Exactly. Most residential structures react to the environment. They expand, contract, flex. So when you finally step into a structure that's designed specifically to isolate the inside from the outside, it registers as this profound sense of quiet.
And that absolute solidity is exactly the focus of our deep dive today. We're looking into the fascinating world of ICF, which stands for Insulated Concrete Form Construction.
It's a really incredible building method and honestly a radical departure from traditional stick-built homes.
Totally. And today, using some really comprehensive materials straight from a custom home builder in Ontario, our mission is to, look past those glossy standard home building brochures.
Right, get into the actual mechanics.
Exactly. We want to understand what an ICF wall actually is, weigh the true pros and cons, and finally demystify the real costs of building one.
Which is so critical for anyone looking at high-performance housing right now. We aren't just talking about a different type of wood here. This is an approach that prioritizes comfort and, century-long durability.
Yeah, so whether you are planning to build a custom home, looking to renovate, or just insanely curious about why some houses feel so much better than others, this deep dive is going to completely change how you look at the walls around you.
It really will, because before we can even talk about whether ICF is worth the money, we have to understand exactly what is happening inside these walls.
Right, the anatomy of it. Because the builder's documentation talks a lot about this concept of continuous insulation.
Yeah, continuous insulation is the foundational principle here. So think about a standard wall, right? It's built using wooden studs, and you stuff insulation into the cavities between those studs.
Just standard pink fiberglass or whatever.
Exactly. But the fatal flaw there is thermal bridging. Every single one of those wooden studs acts as a bridge, conducting heat right out of your house in the winter or pulling the heat in during the summer.
Because wood isn't a great insulator.
Right, not at all. So when a wall is, 20% wood framing, you basically have a massive gap in your thermal defense.
Which kind of makes me think of an analogy. It's basically like wearing a really heavy winter parka, but you slash the fabric open every 16 inches and stitch in a strip of cotton.
That is a great way to picture it, actually.
Like the down feathers in the coat might be super warm, but the cold is still just going to bypass all of that and go right through those cotton strips.
Yes, that illustrates the thermal penalty perfectly. And that is exactly what an ICF wall fixes. It's essentially a sandwich.
A really heavy sandwich.
Very heavy. It consists of 2 permanent layers of dense, rigid foam panels. So you've got this unbroken layer of foam on the outside and another unbroken layer of foam on the inside.
And what's in the middle?
That cavity between the foam is where all the heavy lifting happens. That's where you put the steel reinforcement and then you pour in the concrete.
So let me unpack this. It's basically like building a house out of heavy-duty concrete-filled Legos that you just never take apart.
That's exactly what it is. The foam forms stay in place permanently, acting as that continuous insulation, while the concrete core does all the structural work.
Wow. Okay, so the concrete never actually touches the outside air.
Right, and it never touches the inside air either. Because it's a solid monolithic structure, you get far fewer weak points. It doesn't rot, it doesn't warp, and it doesn't develop what the builder calls a seasonal personality, like wood framing does.
A seasonal personality. I love that. Like when your doors suddenly don't shut right in July because of the humidity.
Exactly. An ICF wall doesn't care if it's July or January, and that continuous insulation method is exactly why the wall performs so well against high winds and severe weather, too.
Okay, so now that we know what this concrete and foam Lego wall actually is, how does that translate into the day-to-day experience of living inside it?
Well, the primary benefits homeowners notice aren't the things you see on a spec sheet. They're the things you feel.
Like the temperature stability. Because I have to bring up this mind-blowing stat from the sources. We're looking at an actual Enbridge gas bill for the builder's 3,000 square foot ICF show home in Ontario.
Oh, this is the best part.
It's wild. So in the absolute coldest month of the winter, maintaining a steady 20 degrees Celsius inside, it costs them just $117.45 to heat the entire house.
Which is almost unheard of for a 3,000 square foot home in an Ontario winter.
Right. And the month before that was only $99.21.
It's incredible, but the mechanism driving that isn't just the foam insulation, it's the thermal mass of the concrete smoothing out those temperature swings.
So it acts like a battery for the heat.
Precisely. Thermal mass stores thermal energy. The concrete core absorbs the ambient temperature of the house, charging up to that 20 degrees. So when the exterior temperature drops at night, the walls slowly radiate that stored heat back into the rooms.
Meaning the furnace doesn't have to kick on every 10 minutes and blast dry air everywhere?
Exactly. It eliminates cold spots and drafts completely.
Okay, but let me push back on this slightly. That sounds amazing on paper, but honestly, when I hear concrete walls, I immediately think of, like, a cold, drafty parking garage. Why doesn't an ICF house feel like a bunker?
It's a really common concern, but you have to remember the sandwich structure. Because the concrete is insulated on both sides by the foam, the cold never actually penetrates the core.
Ah, so you're not actually touching or feeling cold concrete.
Right. And furthermore, the sources note that when you pair this really tight, insulated shell with radiant floor heating, you get a completely different premium category of comfort.
Oh, because the heat is coming from the floor and warming the objects, not just blowing hot air around?
Exactly. The radiant floor charges up the thermal mass of the walls, and the entire house just feels evenly warm.
Plus, the solid concrete blocks out a tremendous amount of noise, right?
Oh, yeah. It stops road noise, wind, neighbors. It's incredibly quiet.
Okay, so if the energy bills are that low and the houses are that quiet, why isn't literally every house built this way? Like, it's time to look at the downsides and caveats here.
Yeah, we definitely need to talk about the risks. And the sources highlight a really blunt truth. ICF isn't the problem. Humans are the problem.
Humans are the problem, meaning the installation.
Yeah. The material severely punishes lazy detailing. In traditional wood framing, you have a lot of margin for error. You can shim a stud or use a sledgehammer to force a wall plumb before the drywall goes up.
You can't exactly sledgehammer a solid concrete wall.
No, you cannot. Once that concrete is poured, it is permanent. Failures usually happen when the poor planning is rushed.
Right. The sources actually talked about blowouts and voids in the concrete.
Yeah, wet concrete is incredibly heavy. If the bracing isn't perfect, the hydraulic pressure can actually rupture the foam forms.
I read this one specific detail from the source that made me laugh. Bad bracing during construction can create a wall that looks like it leaned into the wind for emotional support.
Yeah, a bowed concrete wall is a nightmare. It throws off the roof, trusses, the drywall, everything.
It sounds like baking a delicate souffle.
Yeah.
Like, the ingredients are actually really simple foam and concrete, but if you rush the process or skip a step or just lack technique, the whole thing collapses into a mess.
That's a perfect analogy. You can't wing it. You have to follow a very stringent 5-step build process. Design, site prep, stack and brace, pour, and finishing. Calm planning always beats chaos with ICF.
And the site prep phase seems especially critical. The builder notes that water always wins.
It really does. You need meticulous site prep and waterproofing. If water gets behind the exterior membrane, it's trapped against the permanent foam forms. Fixing that later means excavating the entire perimeter of your house.
Yikes. So it really demands absolute precision.
It does. And there's another major con we need to mention. ICF is a bad investment if you only plan to live in the home for a couple of years before selling.
Oh, because you won't live there long enough to actually enjoy the financial payback from those low utility bills.
Exactly. It takes a longer time horizon to recoup the initial premium.
Well, that timeline of payback brings us perfectly to the biggest hurdle for most people, which is the sticker price. Let's unpack the special intentions around cost.
Yeah, let's get into it. Because the upfront wall package definitely does cost more than a traditional wood frame.
I mean, you're buying engineered foam, steel rebar, and literally tons of liquid concrete.
Plus the specialized labor for that meticulous bracing and the careful detailing around all the windows and doors so they don't blow out.
Right. But the builder warns against comparing an ICF wall directly to a stick-built wall on a spreadsheet. They call it brochure math.
Brochure math is dangerous.
Yeah.
Comparing a basic 2x6 wood wall with some fiberglass shoved in it to a high-performance ICF wall is just a false equivalency.
Because they don't do the same things.
Yeah. Right. The fair way to measure the cost is looking at the whole package. The ICF wall is your structure, plus your continuous insulation, plus your air sealing, all in one step.
To get a wood-framed house to perform at that level, You'd have to add layers of rigid exterior insulation, expensive flashing tapes, acoustic decoupling.
Exactly. When you add all those secondary systems to the wood frame to match the performance, the cost gap narrows significantly.
Okay, but let me raise a practical pushback here on behalf of the listener. Because, saving on my heating bill 5 years from now is great, but that doesn't actually help me pay the contractor today.
That's a very real concern.
Right. If my absolute only priority is getting the lowest possible sticker price right now just to get the house built, is this for me?
The source gives a very direct reality check on that. No. If your only goal is the cheapest possible structure today, ICF is not your first stop.
Stick framing wins on cheap and fast.
It does. But if you want to avoid the ongoing financial pain of high utility bills and the physical pain of cold rooms and noise complaints, ICF makes long-term sense. It's about shifting your budget from operational costs to upfront capital.
It's an investment in the envelope of the house.
Exactly.
Well, that is a perfect place to recap our journey today. We have sliced open this foam and concrete sandwich, marveled at those incredibly low heating bills, and, acknowledged the severe consequences of lazy human installation.
It's definitely an unforgiving system.
Truly. And we've reframed how we calculate the true cost of a home, moving past that deceptive brochure math.
And really, even if you aren't planning to build a house tomorrow, understanding this systems-level approach to construction makes you a vastly more informed consumer in the housing market.
Yeah, absolutely.
You start to realize that walls aren't just structural boundaries holding up the roof. They are active participants in your comfort and your budget.
Which leaves me with a final lingering question to ponder. We spend so much money adding smart technology to the inside of our houses. Smart thermostats, complex HVAC zones, white noise machines, just trying to fix temperature and noise issues.
Slapping a Band-Aid on a leaky box.
Exactly. But what if the ultimate smart home technology isn't electronic at all? Like, what if it's just a better wall?
That is a great point to leave off on.
Something to think about the next time you feel a cold draft in your living room. Thanks for diving in with us today.